Mine. Alrighty, so some of our learning intentions for today. I see a couple of chat comments. If you want to check those, I haven't.
Yeah, I got it.
Questions. Okay. You will learn effective strategies to support the mental health of your students and your staff, because we can't forget our staff. And by staff, I mean you as well. And we will know we're successful when we can actually infuse these self-care strategies with our students and with our staff as well. So I just have a little definition here. One thing that I did want to emphasize is that self-care means taking care of yourself. It's not selfish to do self-care, and caring too much can hurt. We've seen that happen in our career, where it takes a toll, whether we gain weight, we get anxiety, we get depressed, we're driving to work and we're thinking of work. So I'll share a little story right now that, the question was, do you even practice for self-care? I train on self-care. I'm doing it right now, but I struggle with it sometimes as well. I have a beautiful 5-month-old fat baby who's just the world to me. And I drove to work yesterday and I'm literally almost parking in my parking spot. And I realized he's still in the back seat. I forgot to drop him off at daycare. So the moment of like, I'm a horrible mom, what am I doing? I was like, okay, why did this happen? Because I'm moving too fast. I was checking emails when I shouldn't have been checking emails. My mind was somewhere else. And I need to just be present in the moment and be mindful. If I'm driving, I'm driving. And I'm singing songs with the baby rather than, what's on my calendar today. So just, a quick reminder that we do need to do that, because self-care, not only does it, caring too much can hurt, but it can be life-saving, because thank goodness my baby was in the backseat and I found him and I got him to daycare safely, and he's still alive and chubby, but that would have been devastating, if something else would have happened to him. So we do have a couple of opening share outs that we're gonna do with the group to see what you're hoping to get out of today.
Excellent. So our first question is, what are your concerns related to students' return to school? So we know a lot of schools are coming back, a lot of schools are reopening. You've seen it all over the news. What concerns do you have related to students' return? And let me see if I can. Is there anybody that I want to speak on this?
I will. I've been describing it as culture shock. I'm concerned about their experience with culture shock from going from home to in school.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the chat, we also have health concerns, stress levels of students and staff, students adjusting to in-person learning, and social skills. Yeah. Were there anybody else that wanted to also add concerns? Yeah, Kim highlights the staff are incredibly stressed personally and professionally, most definitely. And some worry that they will not be able to manage student stress as well. And thank you for highlighting that, Kim, because we absolutely have to take care of ourselves first, right? It's that whole, like the airplane,
okay,
you have to
but
take care
part
of
of
first.
understanding that there's a new normal, you got to talk about what normal means, because we keep saying, well, when things go back to normal.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's, and we don't even know what the new normal looks like, because we're still in this transition period of just asking that question. What is it going to look like? We have students going back wearing masks and having to distance, and I'm sure staff having to clean up every little while. But we don't know exactly where this is going to settle into. This normal is not going to be just one stagnant thing, right? It's going to look a little bit different for now. And then who knows, 6 months from now, maybe it'll look a little different still. After that, it might look a little different still. And we're all still going to, once we get to the point where we're not wearing masks and not having to be distanced, we're still going to remember all of this. We still might have some of that lingering fear of, what if I do get sick? What if I've been vaccinated and I still am at risk? What if, what if my students are at risk? There's definitely just going to be a lot of questions around all of that, which kind of leads into our next question, which is, what are your concerns related to staff members' return to school? And Kim already highlighted part of that as far as just some of that, the added stress of not only my stress, but then also the stress of my students. So what other concerns do you have related to the staff members?
So somebody mentioned earlier that what is back to normal. And my fear is that there are some teachers who might go back to what they used to do beforehand, which, wasn't effective in the first place, and that they're not going to be addressing their students as they should or themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, right. The moment we feel stress, we fall into our ways of comfort, what makes us comfortable, what makes us feel like, we're doing okay. And we forget some of those new things that we're supposed to be doing, or, different things that we've learned that we think, oh, this will improve things. But once we get to that point, kind of like with Liz's story about, driving, just kind of going on autopilot without remembering all these different things, it's very easy to fall back into some of those old ways when we are in that space where we're feeling stressed, or where things feel different, or we're feeling a little uncertain. Yeah. Let's see, it looks like in the chat, we also have some commentary on social skills, and that there's an increase in COVID cases in the area where Leslie is working. There's staff stress, having to teach in person in the morning and distance learning on Wednesdays in the afternoon. I've talked to teachers that are doing both simultaneously, where they have students in the classroom, but they also are teaching students on Zoom, which is obviously very different even than just hybrid, then you're trying to engage students not only in the real world, but then in the virtual world as well. There's parent calls with concerns, fears for their kids academically, socially, I'm sure for their health and safety as well. Parents are going to be putting pressure. Yeah, most definitely. Which is kind of an unfair situation, because obviously we're all in the same boat, just trying to figure things out as well as we can. Yeah, so was there any other thoughts on this one? Okay, we'll on to our last question. What would you like to gain from today's session? Is there anything in particular that you really feel like this is something I want to learn today, something I really want to get out of our conversation?
In our district, we've been talking about the likely need to help staff and students process the trauma of the last year. So I'm just kind of looking for insights and maybe some ideas and how to do that, safely.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Anything?
I don't know if Steve had his hand up if he had a question, or if it was a high five.
No, it was by mistake.
Okay. We'll give you
a
a high five then.
Awesome.
Excellent.
So this kind of leads us into our next, I'm sorry, was anybody else going to share something? I don't want to cut anybody off on what you're hoping to get from today. Okay, feel free at any time to jump in, whether you unmute yourself or just use the chat box. So there's only so much that we can control. And I think this is something that's a good reminder for our teachers, is that, not just teachers, just support staff in general, what's in our hula hoop and what is within our control. So I just left a meeting where a teacher said, wow, they're sleeping, cameras off, and they're going through all of these behaviors. And I said, look, behavior is tied to the environment. As a behaviorist, that I live and breathe that world. But we can't control the environments that they're in. I can't control if mom lets them use their phone when they should be in class, or if they allow them to come into class late or not show up at all. There's only so many things that we can control, and we just can't take it personally. And we really have to live within that hula hoop, right, of what we can and what we can't control. And I think teachers need to be reminded of that. It's not that you're not good at teaching and you're not engaging your kids, and that's why they're not showing up. There's a lot of things that you cannot control. I know in our district, we have kids who are taking care of the younger kids because mom and dad are working and nobody's at home to take care of the babies. We have, and sometimes they're carrying their brothers and sisters in front of their cameras, or there might be a drunk uncle on his underwear in the back, so they don't have their cameras on because they don't want anybody to see where they live. There's just so many different reasons why we just can't control that. And we have to be reminded, okay, what is your hula hoop? Stay in your hula hoop. And, try to think of what I can and can't control. And some of those things are, technology issues. students not turning on their cameras, although we can motivate them because I have 1,600 teachers that have been working on that, and we have motivators to try to get them to turn their cameras on. Not completing their work, student attendance, and I've always said the more you connect, the less you correct. So if you connect more with your kids, you're going to correct less when it comes to behaviors. Maybe they will turn in more work because now they feel like they belong to something. So if kids feel like they are loved, they belong, and they're safe, they're going to thrive in any environment that they're in. So we always want to remind them of that. So I will share a couple of resources. Actually, the folder that was shared with all of you, I believe gives you access to both presentations. We did one, I think 2 weeks ago. It was called Meeting the Social Emotional Needs of Students, full of SEL lessons by the day. So if you wanted to build community in those classrooms, you can always access those. So I just want to make sure that the link takes you all to a folder. Okay, it did. If it didn't, let us know and we'll retype it on the chat box. So in that folder, there is some lessons. That's not what this session is on today, but I guess I can pull it up so you guys can see what it looks like. I have tons of, I know it was in my recents. So we do have some, when it comes to community building, I think that's what the session was on. It's really about just having those, building those communities in your classrooms. So we do have some lessons in there. And if you have any more questions, you can always email me. My info is at the end of this presentation, but those SEL lessons, or even just welcome back to school lessons, we just did these are for kids who are back in school for the very first time after the pandemic. So we do have lessons on health and safety and social emotional learning, circles for healing, and it is based on grade level. So we have, actually, I'll drop this in the chat box just in case it's not in the folder. I will put it in there for those kiddos that are coming back, because our teachers have done an awesome job at maybe building relationships virtually, but now they're in person. So how are you going to maintain those relationships? And how are you going to restore them, which is even better, what some teachers are actually, they struggle with sometimes. So we do have those lessons available for all of you. So let me go back into present mode. Any questions so far before we go into the next slide? Because I really want this to be like a coffee chat. So if you have any questions, I don't want you to think we're just talking virtually and giving you theory. We're going to share a lot of resources as we go along. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute or use the chat box, or else we'll go to the next slide. All righty. Okay,
Well, so
while
everyone is thinking, I did want to just highlight the folder that we shared. Katie had mentioned some concern about trauma as kids come back and processing some of that. So those SEL lessons are going to be great for just having some of those conversations. So definitely a great place to just go exploring, just kind of see what's in there. But a lot of that is going to help to start bring some of that stuff to the surface. I know you guys are not necessarily therapists trying to process out on a deeper level, but I absolutely understand. You definitely want kids to feel like school is a safe place to be in, whether virtually or in person. And the more that they're able to talk about their feelings, the more they're able to identify even with each other, to be able to say, this whole COVID thing, learning from home is really challenging for me because a lot of students are struggling, but sometimes they feel like they were the only one. So the more they're able to connect with each other, connect with you, the more it's going to just kind of naturally, some of that trauma processing is going to happen on its own.
I was just going to pull up something as you were talking and building that community and that trauma, because again, if kids feel like they belong and they are safe, they are going to thrive in those environments. In these morning meetings, one thing that we found with our educators is our teachers do want to do SEL in their classrooms. They do want to build relationships with communities. They either don't know how, they don't have the time to plan it, and it's just too much. They're overwhelmed with so many things that are going on. So what we realize in our district is if I make them for you, they will do them. So if I give them the lessons, they're going to do the lessons because I've already done the work for them. So I'm sharing those lessons with all of you and hoping that maybe it reaches a bigger audience. But it's pretty much what, Ati was just discussing, that we really just we want them to build relationships with each other, because those interpersonal conflicts and their relationships, it's going to be within each other, not within teacher and student mostly. It's going to be within kids and the mean girl clubs and, all of that type of stuff. So we really want to build community within each other so they can actually Kids don't like each other because they don't know each other, and they fear each other because they don't know each other. So we really want to get them to build relationships with each other. And I've always said this, if I was to go back into the classroom, when I was a teacher, I did a very good job at building relationships with my students, but I didn't do a good job at them building relationships with each other. I didn't know how to do that until I left the classroom. I feel like I left too soon, but I wasn't really good at that. It was all about you and me, but nobody else in the world, it just didn't matter. But I didn't understand that. So I understand that now, and I need to build community with my kids. So I apologize, my internet is super slow. I was trying to pull up my super awesome morning meetings, which is one of my favorites. But we'll jump back to our presentation. I promise I'll share those. And this can be pretty much a dialogue. The importance of placing a strong focus on SEL. So are your educators, do you feel like they want to put a lot of focus on SEL, and or do they feel like SEL is something extra right now, or do they feel like it is the plate rather than adding something to the plate? What are your thoughts regarding infusing some of this SEL into the classroom? Do you think your teachers are open to it? Do you think that they feel like it's another add-on?
I feel that they think it's important and they want to include it in their lessons daily.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm saying teachers are open, ready, and excited. I would agree. I have seen most of our teachers, and I'm speaking just within the box of my district, but a lot of our teachers are very excited and they really want to support their kids. They really do. They want to meet those needs. They're compassionate, they're empathic because they're going through the same thing. So I just wanted to show you what the morning meetings look like. I actually just morphed my May, I think it started in May, so I can kind of give you a glimpse of what that looks like. But the morning meetings is pretty much spreading SEL throughout the day. It doesn't have to be at one time. So one of you said, our teachers, they really want to help support that and the mental health needs of our kids. You can do, so if I was a teacher, I probably would start off my day with my morning meeting, and maybe I could have a poll of the day as a transition. And maybe I can end my day with maybe a closing circle. So I don't have to do all of it at the same time. I can, oh, look at that. It should say, Liz, you have too many windows open. That's what it's trying to say. But I'll leave it here because it doesn't like present mode for some reason. But even just to caption it, so if you do use these, sorry, I just went back to the beginning. We're even creating Jamboards, so the teachers will have their own Jamboards. Teachers don't have time to do any of this. We have to give it all to them. So if they, like I mentioned, one of these, we just redid it. So it's, we're going to be including the Jamboards on there. So if they want to use a Jamboard, they can just click on the Jamboard and they can just use that. So, or they can use the chat, or they can, whatever works for them. But we do have like caption this image. It's basically like a meme. Like, what is this dog saying? Or here's a video, let's have a share out circle. But we pretty much have created all of this for our teachers because they want to do it and they don't have to do it all at once. They can spread it throughout the day or through a couple of days. And then there's also those SEL lessons. I wanted to throw that in there because some of you are saying, how do I meet the needs of our kids? We talk about emotions, we check in, we validate. And when you do any of those lessons, you want to make sure that you share yourself first. So if you're doing a check-in on a scale of a cat, which number do you feel like I need to share my number too? They need to know that I also get anxiety and frustration. I just maybe don't cuss and hit people when I do that, right? I actually take deep breaths. So you do want to share that with your kiddos. And the same with the circles. They want to learn about you, if not more than their own peers sometimes. So if I'm doing a circle go around about what if you could own any animal in the world, what animal would you own? I have to share my response too. You have to be part of the circle so you can level out that playing field. So I'm all about classroom circles. I'm even working on a parent module for doing family circles and the dinner table. So anything with circles or training, I'm your girl. Let me know and I'll hook you up with some stuff. Atsi, I think this one is yours on asking for help.
Yes, and I just wanted to add actually that some of those, the morning meetings that Liz just showed, they look a little like, you would give them maybe with younger kids, but even high school kids, even with adults, some of those questions are just great, either to lighten the mood or to just get people thinking. But at the end of the day, like Liz said, it really is just about that connection and building those connections between the students as well as with the staff. So I just wanted to throw that in there because they really are user friendly and you can use them with all grade levels. So here we're just talking about we're kind of switching gears a little bit into asking for help. A lot of times with caregivers, I've seen it a lot with educators, there is so much of that priority placed on the work and on the students and their progress that sometimes we tend to neglect ourselves. So this is just kind of that call out reminder that it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes it's even preferred. Sometimes we even tell our students, right? Well, if you're not understanding or if you need some support, please just ask for help. But we give that advice and then we don't necessarily practice it ourselves. So this really is just kind of calling out when to ask for help. Whenever your emotions are getting in the way of any of your life functioning or enjoyment really is the answer. So we have some of the emotions highlighted here as far as feeling overwhelmed, fatigued, anxiety, apathy. That one is one that I definitely like to highlight because we do, especially when we start to get burnt out, start to feel like, not that I don't care, but I just don't have the energy. I just don't want to. I just can't. So that apathy really is a key one that sometimes I don't think we acknowledge enough. But obviously feelings of hopelessness, like social withdrawal, rage, anger, fear of panic attacks, especially in such a stressful time. Some of that anxiety, some of that panic really does start to push through. And then some of the benefits when we do ask for help. And these are things that I think that we know, but we don't highlight enough. We don't really check it enough. But it does help when we are able to ask for help. We learn more about ourselves. We're able to achieve our goals faster. We have more fulfilling relationship. We can see improvement all over the different facets of our lives, right? And then it helps us for the accountability piece. If we have somebody else who's saying, just checking in with us, like, hey, how things are going, that really does cause us to think, oh, how am I doing right now? Or sometimes when I used to do morning circles, Liz talked a little bit about circles. I used to do circles with my students. We would gauge on a scale from 1 to 5. And it really would sometimes take me a minute to go, where am I on a scale from 1 to 5? And really just kind of just take that second just to think, where am I right now? And it was so helpful for me just to know where I was, but then also helpful for my students. Because if I'm checking in at like a 1 or a 2, I had a really bad morning today, then my students kind of know, okay, so she might be a little off. She's not, they don't take my reactions personally at that point. And it gives all of us a little bit of space. But then when my students would check in too, it would give me some insight as far as, okay, maybe I need to go check in with that kiddo later.
And I do see on the chat box that someone said, I'm a counselor and teachers don't. Some want to do SEL, some don't. So yes, leadership plays a big role when it comes to this stuff. So the good news is that you are here, so you get all the stuff. So you can do all the self-care and have the best classroom in the world. But it is a top-down approach if you want it to be school-wide or even district-wide. And I know because I don't want to say I've struggled with that, but all of my stuff that we create, it is a non-negotiable. But we had to get to that point with our, our cabinet to our board and everybody else. So I work in a whole different space. But yes, if your leadership is on board and that they need this, they also need to see that it is the plate. It's not something to add to the plate. And this is how we can meet those social emotional needs of our kids and our staff, because I think everybody's on the same boat where they do want to help. Sometimes they just don't know how. Right? So hopefully we can provide some of those. And just like with our kids, I'm sure you guys all know this pyramid, the same applies to our staff. We are no different. I also need to be loved and feel like I belong in the space that I work. So a lot of one of the recommendations that I can give is think of your get to know you activities that teachers have for kids. They do like a poster on, this is my favorite food, my favorite. Do the same thing with your staff. I do it with mine. So every time we have a staff meeting, I pick one person for each meeting and they do one all about me. Right now I have 42 behavior specialists, so I choose 3 or 4 of them because it's a lot and I want to get through them in a year. But they have to share their favorite, all about me activities. I love all my peeps. I don't just do that with kids. I do that with staff because I want them to build community with each other. My staff needs to feel like they're loved, like they belong, like that they matter, and that I see them and what they say matters to me, right? So it's the same thing. And one of the best ways to do that, because sometimes as a supervisor, I get it, we get overwhelmed. Do I send everybody notes? Do I send them Starbucks cards? What do I put on their desk? Build community. That stuff is free. You know, you can do that in a staff meeting. We did that right now. And just doing the all about you activities. There's so many out there. I even have a link to some of those on here. So whatever you do with your kids, do with your staff, because that is one great way for them to build community. And they love to get to know each other. They really do. Sometimes, again, just like our kids, they just don't know how. So we also have SEL throughout the day. We've kind of been talking about that. Some of our teachers feel like if they're new to teaching or new to infusing maybe SEL, they might think that, and they've never tried something. Some of them are doing it and they don't even know that they're doing it. They become a little bit overwhelmed. So they do need to see that it's simple, it's easy, but they have to see how simple and easy it can be. So here I have this resource. You can actually click on some of these. So I try to do it in, how do you do it before a lesson, during a lesson, and to close? This can either be virtual or it can be in person. So if you want to do virtual, here's some tips on the virtual section. And all the other ones can be in between. So how do you infuse it? Using an emotional thermometer, a scale of 1 to 5, like, you know, Otzi was saying, having a morning ritual, like your welcoming greetings, having those check-ins, maybe you do mindful breathing. And then you also have some virtual tips that you can do during that time. But we noticed that teachers didn't know what it looked like. Well, how does it work and when do I infuse it? Whenever you want, even using teachable moments. So if I'm reading a story or a novel, I can pause and talk about the characters' thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because that all has to do with SEL, right? So if I'm reading a story, I think I used this example last time on the one and only Ivan and Stella dies. I can say, you know what, we're going to stop right there and we're going to talk about, how does Ivan feel? Can somebody tell me? Or maybe we'll do a circle go around. And then we'll talk about what is something somebody can say to Ivan after, because Stella died. What is something you can tell someone? Because unfortunately, our kids are going to experience death around them. One of their friends is going to lose a grandparent, an aunt, or somebody during their life. And they might come to school and say, oh, my grandma died this weekend. And you have no idea what to say or to respond to that. So sometimes our kids don't even have that skill set, right? So using those teachable moments and then closing your lessons with a reflection, a goal, an aha, a gratitude, give a compliment to somebody to your right. So having students share their goals, using Flipgrid. I mean, there's so many amazing ways. And again, teachers may be already doing this and they don't have no idea that they're doing it. So we kind of try to parallel this and do it for parents as well. We did give them some resources as well, because a lot of our educators, our teachers were saying, we need parents to be on board with this stuff, because there is chickens in the, you know, when kids are trying to Zoom, can we have them have no chickens, you know, during Zoom? And I realized some of our parents don't have the strategy or the skill either. So we did provide something for parents. We have it in English and in Spanish. So what can you do as a parent before your student is doing virtual learning, during virtual learning, and after virtual learning? So don't give them cookies when they're in class, you know, things like that. Like, we really just had to put it out there, because our parents were like, you know, they were bringing food and there was chickens everywhere, and, you know, half naked people in the background. We're like, okay, I think we need to, you know, give our parents even some expectations as well. So we did create something for parents that you can definitely review and make it your own. So also we wanted to talk about the self-care challenge, because we've been talking about staff. So self-care, as we've been saying, is really important. We need to take care of our staff and each other. So one of the great things that we've done in our district is the self-care challenge. And if anybody has anything that they've been doing at their school site, please say, oh, we tried this and it really worked. We have one of our schools where you had to find a buddy, and it was your wellness buddy. And you have to actually text each other at least 1 or 2 times during the week to give each other a positive praise or share a quote, and just kind of check on each other. So we have teachers that are pairing up to do that, and they're just having a ball with it. Then we have the self-care challenge, where they actually have to state what they're going to do for their own wellness and, you know, just their health. Because one thing that I've realized with self-care is, I've done great PDs in self-care, and teachers eat it up and they're like, oh yeah, that's great, but they don't do it. You know, the training's over and then you forget. So sometimes when I have trainings, I will leave maybe a couple minutes early so I can have them complete this and actually do it, or come back and then share out. So there is a self-care challenge where they say what they're going to do to challenge themselves. We also have a website in my district. The reason why I put it on here is because you can pull and steal whatever you want from it. But we do have, like I just added this calming room, which I thought was really cool. One of my teachers that I was talking to today said, you know what, I'm just done with everything. I'm done with kids and I'm done with adults. And I was like, okay, why don't you go to our calming room? And you can listen to some calming music, or you can watch some penguins live, or you can go to a virtual museum, you know? And she's like, fine, I like penguins, I'll go look at it. But she was just done. She was done today, and she just needed a space to just kind of take a break. And we created that for her. We also have some gratitude, mindfulness activities. They want to do some health, some working out, you know, anything that they want, we have it here. And if we don't, I'll figure it out and I'll make it up. Coping with stress. So we do have a lot of things on here, but I wanted to share so you can steal it. You can steal all of it, even the stuff from our website. So feel free to steal anything. So yes, some activities for your teachers, your self-care, and even those self-care plans are very, very critical. And then we also have, was there anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to let everybody know I am putting the links in like one by one, but they're all in that folder. So you don't necessarily need to keep every single link. Because I know it's there's a lot in there.
Yeah, way too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's not, maybe because I have too many windows. I should just close everything. Because it's slowing down I did like 5 trainings today. I'm not even kidding and now I'm doing student reflection cards for restorative practices. Let me close some of this stuff up.
Do you want me to share my screen, Liz?
I think we might have to do that if this doesn't, let me see. Yep, let's share yours because mine is overwhelmed and overworked.
Aren't we all?
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Oh, no problem. Yep. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
And we are getting to our Kid Cope lesson activities. So those of you who were talking about meeting the mental health needs of your kids and coping with stress, we have lessons for that too. So I'm excited to share that.
All right, and this one I think is another self-care plan, right? I wanted to just click on this one so we also have, so everybody can see this one. Is this one supposed to be a parent self-care list?
Yes, I think we also have a sample. It can be for parents or it can be for staff. It says parent because I did a parent training, but it can be for staff as well. So if they want something simpler, not like, I'm not going to complete this whole self-care challenge, they can do that in a staff meeting. If you do this one, I do recommend that you have your own that you create so you can share it with them and they can see what it looks like when it's complete. So I do have some examples of that if you did want something like that, but this one is a lot more simple and you want to do your own, share it so you have an example. If not, you can just do it for yourself.
Right.
And I see even some self-care strategies that Katie Thomas has in her background. I love those. I think that's 50 ways to take a break, maybe. Looks familiar. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Actually, we developed something like that on 50 ways to take a break in the classroom because some of that stuff is not available for the class. So we recreated it just for the classroom. So if I'm losing it, I can look at it and there's something I can do at that moment because I don't have a yoga ball next to me. So we did recreate that for the classroom. I'll have to share it. I'll drop it on the folder.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're transitioning into coping with stress, which we've already kind of been touching on self-care in general, but we also want to address some of those boundaries because there's so many different tips and things that we can do in order to really be active in our self-care. But sometimes our self-care needs to just be putting up a boundary somewhere. Sometimes it needs to just be saying, nope, I can't do that. Or sometimes, okay, I'm going to do whatever this task is until this time, and then I'm giving myself a break. Or sometimes I'm going to stop work right now, even though I'm not finished, because I really need to prioritize some time with my family. So there really are just a lot of different ways of coping with stress. The first part really is just going to be acknowledging that the stress is present, that you're feeling that stress. That's why even just doing the check-in can be incredibly powerful because sometimes we just go without realizing, oh man, my stress level is kind of going up right now. We just get so stuck in everything that we're doing. We're making lists, even mentally making lists. So this is just kind of looking at some of that and some of the maladaptive and adaptive ways of coping with stress, because essentially what happens is that we start to feel stress. Maybe we feel some anxiety. And some of these, even the maladaptive areas of coping, are still coping. They're obviously just not the best and healthiest ways of doing that. So sometimes we just feel like, okay, I just need to get this done. So I'm just going to stay up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And for some people that is just kind of, okay, I'm going to do one day that I'm up really late. And then every other day I'm going to be more mindful and not do that. But obviously when it starts to become a pattern, then there's definitely a problem. I had an AP that I worked with, and she responded to one of my emails at like 11 o'clock at night. And I called her out the next day. I was like, why are you responding to my emails that late? And she said, you know what? I really have to confess this. I was emailing you from the bathroom because my husband keeps telling me that I can't be working that late anymore. So we also want to be mindful about the other people that are around us that are telling us, right? Sometimes we don't have our own like inner sense of like, okay, I need to stop now. But sometimes our loved ones are going to call us out. And sometimes we really need to listen to some of that. So, taking work-related calls at all hours, or always saying yes. That one is one that I see quite a bit of with caregivers, because we want to be able to support others. We want to be able to help. But sometimes always saying yes to others means that we're always saying no to ourselves. So that's something that we just have to really be mindful of. And again, prioritizing work over family and self-care. We do have to put on our own oxygen mask before we do so for other people. And substance use, I'm sure is not as big an issue as it is in other populations, but it is something that I wanted to highlight there. Just because it is something, especially during this whole COVID experience, that there has been, more trends that are showing more substance use. So I definitely just wanted to call that out. So some of the adaptive ways of coping, we have setting those realistic boundaries. Obviously, we can't always end our workday at 3 o'clock. That's not always going to be realistic and reasonable, but maybe 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock is going to be more reasonable. So we still have that time for ourselves, still have that time for our families. And that really is all the things that are going to feed us, right? That are going to recharge our batteries. So we need to do some of these things. Increasing and maintaining self-checks and mental breaks. Maintaining that work-life balance, right? We don't want to be living to work. We don't want to prioritize work. We want to be able to prioritize our lives. And taking me time, utilizing those friends and family supports. We really need to have that in order to be able to maintain. So what coping looks like for students, and I kept it kind of the same way because sometimes we see these acting out behaviors, we see anger, we saw withdrawal, isolation. Sometimes this is more related to the trauma piece than it is to just general defiance and disrespect. So it is something that I just wanted to just have highlighted here, just because we need to sometimes just take that pause and give our kiddos that break to figure out, where is this coming from? And obviously we don't always have time to just sit with a student one-on-one and say, hey, how are you today? What's going on with you? Why are you reacting this way? But it does, at least if we're giving a little bit of space, sometimes it does give us that pause, enough time not to react and try to get a little more curious. We'd say sometimes at CLS, get curious, not furious. And that really is where we are allowing that space for students to kind of figure out, okay, what's going on? What do I need to do in order to support that, so that we're not seeing so much of this behavior? And of course, these are some of the adaptive ways that we give our students. So we see them coping. Sometimes we need to give them some more of these skills. That's why that whole folder that Liz is showing you guys is fantastic, because all of the interventions, everything is already created. It really is just a matter of offering it to our students. So they're using more of those adaptive coping strategies rather than the maladaptive. Okay.
And I just dropped on the chat box some more SEL, self-care strategies for staff. So if you wanted some like activities on what that looks like, I did drop that in there. And the app for Headspace is free for all educators. So if your staff is not aware of that, they do have that available for all educators, and it's free. Really cool app. The Calm app is also awesome. It used to be free for educators, and they realized they can make more money if they don't give it away for free. So if you were grandfathered in, yay. If not, they're not giving it out. And then this one, coping with stress lessons. This is one of my favorites. So there's actually a universal screener called KidCode. I wanted to find a screener where our teachers didn't have to screen our kids. Kids could pretty much, self-identify how they're feeling, because our teachers didn't want to feel like they were therapists, or how do I know, they just didn't feel comfortable screening. So the KidCode, it was a pretty simple, like 50-question survey. And then we compiled all of those results, and it actually, if you want to click on the next slide, let's see, it has, so it goes by topic. So the screener focused on these areas here, and I want to say it was like 12 or 15 areas. So we developed lessons for all of those areas with our therapists, our social workers, and our teachers. We wanted it to be teacher friendly because they're for teachers. And sometimes you have people who have never been in the classroom trying to do lessons and it doesn't work out. So I said, no, we need our teachers in here. So we developed these lessons. So if you wanted to focus on some of these areas, there is about 2 or 3, I want to say 3 lessons for each topic. So there is a series of, gosh, I don't know, maybe 80 slides or more of just lessons for coping with stress. So if you wanted to more some of those SEL, now if you follow our SEL lessons, which I'm actually going to show on the next couple of slides, I did add every Thursday, it's our Thoughtful Thursday, and it focuses on one of these. So I didn't want to go heavy with my kids where every day we do something heavy, because this stuff is heavy. So I wanted to kind of mix it up with some fun stuff. So it is part of our SEL lessons on Thursdays, if you are following those lessons. And our morning meetings will eventually morph into that as well. So there is a lot of lessons on here for distraction, wishful thinking, just really negative thinking for our kids. And even our counselors have been using these when they pull out groups, are actually using some of these lessons as well with our kiddos. So you can either use them in your own classrooms or you can share them out. So they're really cool, and hopefully they're helpful for somebody else as well. So we do have a couple of those which look pretty similar to like our morning meetings and our SEL lessons, but I feel like we have so much stuff. As I'm talking, I'm like, man, we have a lot of stuff. But I promise I'll share all of that with you. Are the morning meetings included in the folder? Yes, they are. I will double check to make sure that they are, but yes, they should be in that folder. Any questions so far on the coping lessons, how we use them? Any questions on content or anything else that you need? If you need it, I promise you, I probably have it. It's just not in the folder. So feel free to ask and I will dump anything in there. We even have videos. I had my teachers film themselves giving their best, SEL strategies. So they did that. What's the name of the screener? Somebody asked. It is called KidCode. And I will drop my email onto the chat box. If it's something you wanted to do with your classroom or your school, I can show you how we did it. I didn't want to pay money, so I kind of used the free one and I just kind of made it my own. And then, so every school I had graphs, like this is where your kids are. So based on the needs of my kids, based on the survey results, I pulled lessons based on the highest need. So that's the beauty of Google Docs, right? If you put all of the KidCode questions on a Google survey, it'll give you those beautiful graphs. So I knew what areas my kids were struggling in, and those were the lessons I was giving them. I didn't give them what they didn't need at that moment. So you can definitely make it. And then I think on the next one, we have the gratitude. Is it the gratitude journal, Oxy? On our next slide.
I'm just
Trying to remember.
Managing stress.
I think it's not on this one, on the presentation.
Oh, shoot. Let me see. Let me go back.
But yes, you can use, our kids need all of these, right? But if you want to do the screener, you can give them what they need at that moment, because we do pre and post, and they don't need the same lessons. Depends on the month, and they need different lessons. They struggle with different things during different times. And then we also have for staff, and we also have it for kids. I don't know if I put the gratitude journal for kids on here because I was focusing more on staff, but I will add, I put it on here, 50 ways to take a break in the classroom, and then student gratitude journals.
Yeah, this one is the staff gratitude journal.
Okay, so I have the same thing, but for kids, and I have it by grade level, and we have it in Spanish too. So if you need those in Spanish, let me know and I can send those to you. But I will drop these in. We also have SEL journals that talk about feelings and emotions, and we have those in Spanish too. But if you go back, Ati, and you want to click on it just to kind of share, click on the image for, yeah, that one. I believe it's a 20-day, 30-day challenge for staff. I highly recommend talking about self-care. I have, when I do trainings, I even have them do it in the training. Like today, you're going to do day one. If it's a staff meeting, today, you're going to do day two. But gratitude, I mean, research shows that it makes you happier, it boosts your immune system, and you're just happier to even come to work and you're a better team player. So it helps you focus on the good things that are happening in your life rather than just the negative, right? And then you have to find positive things during the day because you have to write about them. So it actually helps you focus on positive things. So gratitude by far, it actually shifted, I would say, the way that I even see things. Like yesterday, I mentioned the story of I didn't leave my baby in the car. I realized when he was in the car, he was in the car. But at that moment, I had that split second of, what if he would have stayed in the car and all the bad things that could have happened, right? And then I told myself, Liz, why are you stressing about something that didn't even happen? So replace this with a positive thought. So I replaced my negative thought of how my baby wouldn't be here today to, I get to celebrate all these birthdays with him. And what's his first birthday going to be like? And he loves Elmo. And what am I going to buy? But it literally, your thoughts create emotions, and those emotions create behaviors. So thoughts, emotions, behavior. So if I'm thinking negative, my emotion is frustration, anger, sadness, and then I'm going to act out by being withdrawn and not wanting to talk to anybody, right? And I changed that thought. So cognitive fusion, if you can dominate your thoughts and control them a little bit more, you'll definitely be happier. And with gratitude, it does that. One of my favorite gratitude research studies was they actually had, obviously two different control groups. And what they found was they exposed one group to gratitude journaling and one group was not. So the one that both groups, they made superficial cuts on them because they wanted to see if they would heal faster if they were doing gratitude. They exposed them to colds. Like it was like the most bizarre stuff that they did. But what they found was that people who practiced gratitude healed faster. They had a higher immune system and they were happier 6 months after the study. So gratitude makes a big difference. And with our staff, they really need it. If you really want them to focus on the positive as those, kiddos are coming back to school and they're just frustrated and anxiety driven because they're having the same emotions our kiddos are having. So gratitude, by far one of my favorites. And Oprah does it. So, if Oprah does it, it means that it actually works, right? Because Oprah just
that makes it legit.
Yeah, if Oprah does it, I'm going to do it. It's probably one of her favorite things. I'm just saying. It probably is. Our SEL lessons, I kind of touched on this and I kind of showed all of you what it looks like. This is an example. We do have it by grade level. For 8th grade, you can use it for high school as well. The videos can be high school videos. They're like mindful movements. So what we did is Mondays are mindful Mondays. Tuesdays are SEL Tuesdays where we're actually doing a lesson. But we have a program for it. So if you don't have the program, you can skip it and replace it with a Kid Cope lesson. Wednesday, I think, is gratitude, thoughtful Thursday, and then we have fun Friday. So there is a trend. Every Monday is mindfulness. Every Tuesday is, SEL. So we kind of, created it that way. But this could be your morning meeting. It could be, hey, here's a question. What makes you happy? Caption this image. What does this image say to you? And let's do some yoga. And that is your morning ritual. And like I said, our teachers want to do this stuff. They just don't have the time to put lessons together, but they'll do it if you give it to them. And I realize if I give you the lessons, they're going to do it. They're just not going to create them on their own. It takes too much time. So luckily we've created those and we have Jamboards in there as well. There is a shared folder in this next slide in there, except I will drop in the gratitude journals for students and the 50 ways to take a break in the classroom. And I think we also have mindful movements. I'll drop that one in there in case you want that one. Mindful movements is not yoga, it's just movements and poses. But what I love about it is we had our own babies, our own students here in Bakersfield City School District create mindful movements because I'm going to be honest with you, I was looking for like something with poses that our kids could do. And I found all these amazing programs, but none of them looked like my kids. I wanted them to look like my kids. I wanted them to be in a wheelchair. I wanted them to be big. I wanted them to be small. I just wanted it to be culturally diverse and nobody really had that. So our own babies are the ones doing those poses. So I will drop in the mindful movements in there. And they're very quick movements that teachers can do in the classroom. And they can use it during, transitions or when kids need a break, especially right now that they're boxed into this bubble and they can't move. They need to move. And I've always said, if you can get him to move, then he can calm down. I reminds me of my kids who had extreme ADHD. I can't get him to stop moving. Well, if you want him to stop moving, you got to get him to move first. That means he needs a break and then he'll calm down. It's actually the opposite, right? And it's the same with our babies. They're stuck in there. We want to get them to move. Mindful movements is a great way to do that. There's also mindful movements for staff. So I think we have chair poses like chair something. I don't know what our teachers created, but how do you do poses in your chair? Because some teachers don't want to move. They just want to stay in their desk, or maybe they have some health impairments where they can't move. So, there's something for staff as well, but you want to make sure that you do infuse those movements throughout the day. When you're talking trauma, remember your thoughts create emotions and they create behaviors. So if I can tap into that thought by changing what you're thinking of that trauma by saying, we're going to do a mindful movement, or we're going to do a mindful moment, or we're going to do an opening circle, they forget what they were thinking about. And now they're a whole different child for that minute, right? So if you can change their thoughts, you're going to change their behaviors. So the best way to change their behaviors is to start with their thought process, and your lessons, these that we're sharing, will help you get there. Hopefully with all of your kids.
Whew. So
Maybe
now,
questions. That was a mouthful.
Breathe a second. What stood out from today's session? What will you be taking back to your teams? We just want to hear from you and see what you're finding to be helpful. And of course, this will inform our other webinars that we do so that we can see just from you guys and from your feedback, what is helpful for you.
Loved all the resources. Can't wait to dive in and really take a peek at those.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Anything else? Anything that stood out? I know it's kind of a lot, especially when we get towards the end, like, oh man, this is a lot of stuff to look through. But yeah, the resources are definitely amazing. So please definitely take your time, especially because they're ready to use. Yeah, that's what Amy mentioned in the chat. Yes, they're ready to use. Grab them, use them, share them with everybody. Really, that is what they're there for. So please feel free. And I mean, like Liz mentioned, if there's something that you're needing that you feel like is missing for you, let us know. We might already have a resource that's created. Or if not, that might be an idea of somewhere we need to fill in that gap and create more resources for you. Let's see.
Yeah, I was just going to say my I don't know what I don't know box just got a lot bigger. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Kay. Yeah, sometimes we don't realize how much we're missing until we see all these other things available, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And on that folder that we did share, there is 2 folders, I think, in there. There's one for beyond reopening schools and then the implications of a pandemic. If you click on the other folder, I'm looking at it right now, it does have the morning meetings, the SEL lessons, and the strategies that I shared today, including the classroom management. That one is one of my favorites because it's all developed by our teachers, but it also gives you tools. I'm all about, but show me what it looks like. So for classroom management, if you go to the feature like relationships for virtual learning, it gives you resources to actually do that. It doesn't just say, hey, do this to build relationships. We're giving you Google folders or files that have been created by teachers, whether it's activities or virtual expectations or breakout room expectations. All that stuff is on there so that teachers can use it, however they want. But it is on that other folder for beyond reopening schools if you guys need that.
All right, so here we are at the end of our presentation, but we do want to just give some time for questions, concerns, any additional feedback, anything else that you all want to add? Everybody's still processing all of the resources.
Like, that was a lot. Thanks.
I'm on overload.
Yeah.
Wait, 007.
Well, with that, we didn't want to keep you longer than we didn't have to. If you guys don't, we kind of skimmed through all of this, but we wanted to make sure we made it short and sweet and give you exactly what you needed. So unless you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, we will stick around if anybody has any questions and they want maybe a one-on-one with some how to navigate all of these resources. Maybe we should do a PD on how do you navigate all of this stuff. So we can actually did a PD for teachers that said teachers said, I love the SEL stuff, but it's a lot. Can I get a PD on walking me through everything? And we actually did a drop-in, and we had a lot of teachers saying they just shared this with me and I had no idea what it was. Yeah. So, which reminded me teachers need that too. So kind of guide them through some of these resources. Don't just share them out because they're going to be overwhelmed and they'll have no idea how to use them. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining. We appreciate you. I hope that you do a self-care challenge for yourself. You start your first gratitude journal entry as well. And if you have any questions, again, we will stick around for those of you who maybe have something you want to share. But other than that, thank you all so very much. And have a great day and take care of yourselves and each other.